This week, I want to share some of the new photography related things that I've picked up this month. There's a lot of new books and work that I have to share with you, a cool new little camera and some film as well. I'm going to start with a book that was very kindly sent to me by the artist himself. This is a book called Southwestern by Neil McDiarmid. I believe this is Neil's fourth book publication, and all of this work takes place in the southwestern boroughs of London, hence the name Southwestern. The first thing you notice is just how beautiful this collection of images is. Neil is really known for his use of color, and he has an incredible history of portrait and landscape work, just like this book represents. Not only do I love the form factor and the design of this book, but the images in here are incredible. The only real context that you get to the photos is the location, which is listed to the left of each photo. They're all square format photos, and the book has kind of been designed around the idea of that. I'm personally a huge fan of the mix of portraits and landscapes that are in here, and Neil is somebody who I hope to interview in the future for this channel. I think if I ever did make a book, I would want the form factor to be something like this as well. It's a very simple but beautiful design. Definitely check this one out. I've been looking at a lot of American photography recently, and Good Morning America by Mark Power is a really good example. Mark Power is a Magnum photographer, and I think this body of work started as an assignment that he was doing for Magnum, and he later continued it on his own. These are really vast landscapes that he made across America, and it really is a beautiful documentation of some of these different locations. There's so much detail to these photos, and you even get these incredible fold-out panoramas, which I could look at for ages. There's so much detail to look through in these photos, and I think the size of the book really does the photos justice. What I think is pretty ambitious about this project is that this is the first volume, and he's planning to put out 5. And overall, I'm a big fan of Mark Power and this project. Gregory Halpern is somebody who I've been a fan of for a while now. I picked up his book ZZYZX ages ago. He made all the work in this book in Los Angeles, California, and he has some pretty shocking subjects, but at the same time, the photos in this book are so beautiful. This is the first book I ever picked up by Gregory Halpern, but the reason I mention this is because he has a new book out, which is called Omahas Sketchbook. And the work in this book was all made in Omaha, Nebraska. The work feels very in line with Gregory Halpern's style and his subject matter, but what really drew me to this book was the design of it. The design concept for this book specifically was to recreate one of his original sketchbooks that he made from this colorful paper and from cutting up the color printed contact sheets from all of this work in Omaha. I've never seen anything like this, and I was blown away by the design. Not only is this a really cool insight into the process of Gregory Halpern, but the work itself is really incredible as well. There's some things you'll come across in this book that just feels so authentic to the original sketchbook that he made. Like, there's certain places in the book where they were able to reprint the condition of the original paper that he made it on, and I think that's super impressive. The images flow really well, and also the contact sheets are glossed over with this laminate, which at first almost tricked me into thinking I could take the contact prints off the page. I think that's just such a nice design choice, and this is definitely worth picking up if you do come across it. The very last book, I promise we'll get to some other camera related stuff in a second, but this is On This Site by Joel Sternfeld. I've been a fan of Joel Sternfeld for ages, and this might be my favorite book by him. At first, when you look at the images, you get the impression that they're these beautiful sunset pictures he made across America, but as you read into the context and the captions alongside each of these photos, you realize that he's documenting crime scenes across America over the span of 3 years. The crimes are all related to things like the government or gun violence or political crimes, and just looking at the image, then reading the caption and seeing how that shifts the meaning of the photos is pretty impressive. I think this is a pretty important book in terms of explaining what context can mean in photography, and if you do come across this, it's definitely worth picking up. I briefly want to talk about some expired film that somebody named Taylor very kindly sent me recently. He sent me a huge selection of expired film because I believe he has a ton on sale still as well. which I'll leave in the description. But he sent me some awesome mix of slide, color negative, and black and white films to play around with, so I'm super stoked to try this stuff out. I'll actually have a full video coming very soon where I actually go through and shoot some of this stuff. The last and final thing I want to show you is a camera that I picked up, and this is a 110 camera. This is a format that I never heard of. It's a film format that's smaller than 35mm, which is pretty cool. I believe that the size of the film that this shoots is equivalent to 16mm movie frames. But the thing that drew me to these cameras was just how compact and cute they were. I picked up this one called the Kodak Instamatic 20 camera, and it shoots 110 film cartridges. This was a much more consumer-friendly film format that I think came out in 1972. I'll have to check that. This really is such a simplified camera. There's a shutter button, a viewfinder, and a way to wind the film on the bottom. There's no control at all. It's a fixed shutter speed, fixed aperture. So it really is photography simplified. I'm super stoked to try out this camera and go out and shoot with it soon. And that might be it in terms of the physical things. I do want to talk about some YouTube channels that have popped up recently, which I'm super excited about. I love seeing new YouTube channels pop up here about photography. The first one is my buddy Joe Greer, who you might already know about, but he's got an awesome YouTube channel where he just documents his own photography. I think it's really cool that he's totally focusing on the creative process and not so much anything gear related. And he's just a super talented photographer, so seeing his process is incredible. The next one is my friend Cory Wolfebarger, and he's got an awesome channel going. He's only got a couple videos up at this point, but they are incredibly fun to watch. The production quality on his stuff is amazing, and he's also a really talented photographer, so it's just cool to see his process and see him making his work. That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Monthly Favorites. You can check out my Instagram in the description. It's @WillemVerb. That's it for now. Peace.